Who's ready to deploy some LLMs with FastAPI using ChatGPT? Don't write code. This is easy. Welcome to this episode of AI Column. My name is Adi Column, and let's get started. So in this one, what we're looking to do is that basically we're looking to go through and take an LLM model. In this case, we'll be looking at Stable Diffusion, and we'll be taking Stable Diffusion, making an inference of it, and being able to use FastAPI to wrap that around. Now, the really cool part about this is that you're dealing with LLMs, you're dealing with the greatest stuff, and then you don't have to write any code for the most part. Like you're just copying and pasting code from ChatGPT. So when we take a look at Stable Diffusion here, this is Stable Diffusion 1.4. This is what we'll be using. And in this one, what you have is with Stable Diffusion 1.4. So let's take a look today. This is Stable Diffusion 1.4. This is what we'll be using today. Now, what's interesting is that here there's a hosted Inference API, which we can actually run. It'll go through and load the model and then just run. But it'll make different inferences. So these inferences, we can actually get these to run on our computer. Now today I'm running on an Apple M1 chip. It's the 10-core M1 Max, so it has a little bit better GPU, but overall it's still going to take a little bit more time because it's not an NVIDIA GPU, right? So if we go and take a look at how to do this inferencing, this is directly, all I did was Googled Hugging Face text image Apple M1, right? And it shows you right away, first link, how do you make the inference? So we have this code. What we can do is we can take this code and we can feed it to ChatGPT and say, hey, using this code, can you wrap this around FastAPI? And can you get it to the point where we can use something called the Swagger UI Docs, which is basically this really, really nice documentation that's built into FastAPI. And it's a nice interface where it kind of looks like it's a graphical user interface. So it's used so that you can hook up HTML, CSS code to your API in that way, to your application. So when we take a look at this other one, here is the Windows version. So this is all the code if you were running on Windows, as far as what you'd put in. It's just basically everything here in the code block just put together, and that's what you would need to put into ChatGPT. So let's take a look at ChatGPT. So what we'll be looking to do is we'll be looking to take this and wrap it in FastAPI. So specifically in this, I've chosen GPT-4. And let's see what we can say. So I'm going to say this code is for making an inference on a text to image model using Python. It's important that we tell Python. And we're giving it a little bit more contextual idea with the text to image model. And let's say this could take a text prompt as input and outputs an image. What else? To get more context, so wrap it in FastAPI so that I can enter a prompt and get an image back for my output in the browser. It's important that we mention the browser because that'll change how it actually can output that, and especially that we're using the Swagger UI Docs. We want to make sure that code is right so we don't get any errors. So we'll also say, give me the commands in terminal to deploy the application. And we'll say, here's the code block. All right, and then for the code block, I'll just grab this code here. This is specifically for my M1 chip /M2, and we'll give it that. There are no code blocks in ChatGPT, so you do have to just kind of paste it in there. One thing I like to do is I like to mention what it is, and then I like to put that toward the end, and I put a colon, give it some space, and then give it that. That usually is good as far as separation. Usually you can only do one of these, but let's give it a try. So it's good that it's giving us like first what we need to install. And so making sure FastAPI is installed, Unicorn is installed for deployment, and nice, it's going through the queries. We brought in Python image library, and there's our code. Okay, that's good. Now, one thing is that I am running on a 64 gig machine, so it brought up this pipe enable attention slicing, which is part of the original code, and this comment that it made is actually just pulling it directly from that. Yeah, so I can just comment that out since it'll probably help it go a little bit faster if I put that out. So it's important to kind of like take a look at the code and get an idea, like, is it the right thing? But overall, yeah. And so it's even telling us how we're going to go through and deploy that. After running this command, you can access the application in your browser by navigating to, yeah. So really, like, we'll just need that local 8000. So let's give this a try. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this code. FastAPI and Unicorn. I already have these installed. Let me pull this back. All right, so let's open up VS Code here. And what we'll do is we will create a new file called app.py. And we're doing that because that's what it had over here. App.py. We'll go ahead and copy this code. Save that. Now, let's get a new terminal going here. There we go. And what I'll do is I'll make sure these are installed. So I'll come over here, pip install FastAPI. Pretty sure all of these are installed. Yep. And pip install Unicorn is the other thing it had. That's already installed. So what we'll do next is we'll just go to deploying. So now that we have all this code richness and goodness, let's go ahead and do that. There we go. And it started. Cool. So we can go through to our browser. Open. Okay, so we're here. And what we're going to do is do a /docs. And there it is. So with this, we'll be able to hopefully generate this. Looks like text prompt for generating an image. Cool, let's click try it out. And let's just do a astronaut riding a car. Let's see what happens. Now if we go back here, we should see this processing. Yep, there it is. So what's happening here is, and I actually didn't even disable this for recommended if your computer has less than 64 gigs of RAM, even though this does, has more than 64, or 64, has 64. So what this is doing is going through, and it's processing relatively quickly for making an inference on a M1 chip. So hopefully when that is done, we'll see an image come up here. And we got an error. Okay, so yeah, what we'll do is it looks like we need to kind of like see if we can make any changes to this. One thing I want to do real quick is I just want to try running it again, because sometimes you run this and it gives you like different code. So trial and error. It's already giving me something different. Let's see what GPT-4 can spit out this time. Yeah. So it's already changing it up. So definitely, like in some of these, what I've tried before is being able to like give it the errors is the other thing. But sometimes you just give it another go and it tries to figure it out. So let's see over here what our return is. Oh, okay. So yeah, I don't want to mess with this. What we're going to do is we're going to try to see if it can figure it out. Here we go. Okay, so we got the code. We're just going to copy this direct. I'm going to paste that in. Save it. Let's go. ChatGPT. Team ChatGPT. All right. So what are we putting in for this one? Is this still app.py? Yep. Okay, and then we're just going to do the same thing. Now, it did look like maybe I went to a different part of the, yeah, there we go. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll run this again. I'm going to make sure I'm saving it. Run that again. These are all good signs. Okay, cool. Let's get back to here and go back to that Swagger UI. Switch back to Docs. All right, this is a new one. And we'll try that again. What did we have? Astronaut riding in a car. See processing. Yep, going through again. Ooh, not safe for work content was detected. We may get a black image. But let's hope we get an image. Now, in Windows, this could be much faster if you're using that other code. So if you're using this code and you have an NVIDIA GPU, basically almost any kind of NVIDIA GPU should be able to do this properly and relatively quicker than the M1 chip, just because optimization. But we'll take a look here. Not too bad. I'm very impressed that it was actually able to get all of this code in there and actually read the code. Unsupported format of image int. All right, so after going through a couple iterations, it looks like this code over here looked like the one that was most structured. Now, none of the prompt here was changed. It's literally the same prompt, but we got different results every single time. And notice over here, it wants me to install more things, which these are already installed just within Python. So no worries, especially these. These other ones, you do need to install. These are the standard ones, FastAPI and Unicorn. So the code changed every single time. And in this case, it even commented out that one about the enabling attention slicing. So that's interesting. It's almost like it knew. I had more than 64 gigs of RAM. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here and I'm going to copy and paste this into that. And we'll run the same thing. It wants us to run this Unicorn app code. So we'll run that. All right, there we go. Going at it again. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to control click here and open that up. This is the usual. We'll go to docs/docs. All right. So here's our generate image. This looks like just the root. So nothing to see there, but generating the image, let's see if we can get that. So astronaut driving in a car. Should see it executing. There we go. And again, what's interesting is it commented this out. Let's see what else it had for directions. So I'm going to go back to this. Okay. So yeah, basically it's mostly the same thing. The things that really change is how it wrote the code, especially toward the bottom here. I noticed in some of the iterations it had a post command here, which wouldn't work because you're not going to get an image back. It's just you're sending information to the server. You definitely want to make sure you have that get command. And I think one reason why it might be doing that is because I'm telling it like I'm going to give it an input. And so it's like, oh, you might be pushing something up to the server, but I'm also telling it, hey, give me back an image. And anytime you're receiving anything back, that's a get command. So let's go back here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that went through. Whoops, let's go back to that. That went through, and here's the iteration. And yeah, so this code worked. And just like that, we have FastAPI deployment. with just from ChatGPT. So ChatGPT took a small amount of time. This took like 8 minutes or so to go through and iterate through some of these code and being able to have a working iteration. Like, I actually want to play with this again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close down the server and I'm going to run it again. So yeah, run it again. Let's make sure. Yeah, okay. And we'll come down here and do another one. What do we want to do? Sports car in the desert. And let's say in the country. So notice we didn't really write any code at all. All we did is we went up here, we took their sample code, we implemented it into this, and we're now able to deploy it on our machine. And with this, you can actually deploy this on AWS EC2. So using their servers, you can definitely have this as something that you can do a public IP address and then have this instead of within the local host, it'll actually go directly to that IP address. So in other words, you can deploy this application so all of your friends can use it. And there we go. So we went through that. Let's check on that. So I think we had this one. This was the sports car in the country. Yeah, just like that. Okay, so FastAPI, replacing programmers, definitely on the way. Like the whole entire FastAPI code with some iterations. I mean, think about it. You can actually do this to the point where even if it's airing out a little bit here or there, you can feed it some of the errors, or you can just do a couple iterations until you get something successful, and it's still quicker than writing all of this. So very, very cool. Yeah, this can definitely be deployed on AWS, EC2, GCP, all of that. Yeah, if you like what you saw here, stick around for more. I'll be doing more of these videos, FastAPI. We have more stuff coming up with LLMs. I'm really interested in seeing what else we could do utilizing ChatGPT for writing a lot of this code and doing deployment. So LLM deployment is definitely something I have in mind. I think this is pretty awesome, and you don't need to go through a bunch of code. One of the things we always talk about is democratizing AI, right? So it's like, if you're going to go through and have all of this code required, you're going to limit the number of people that can use AI. But if we can actually use something like this and show how we can use normal language to write code like this, I mean, that's pretty awesome. You'll be able to have everybody left and right deploying their applications. So that's what we're aiming for. Remember to continue building, shipping, and sharing, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.